We're finally at the end of this Slaysian Royale journey. Initially, I started watching this season because of Brigading and Vinas. They were the ones I knew from the Philippines, and there were some queens from other seasons that I knew of, like Yuhua and something, Siam Pussy. But I was specifically in it for Vinas and for Brigading and to watch them take the crown, or at least that's what I was hoping going into it. Along the way, I came to enjoy a lot of these queens that I had no context for, but I was always rooting for Brigading to take the crown and manifesting it every single episode. So when the two that I was rooting for ended up as the finalists, spoiler alert, I was extremely overjoyed. That being said, the journey to get to the end was a strange one, and I'm specifically talking about the edit of this final episode. This may have been the most bizarre finale edit that I have ever seen in my life. The editing was as hobbled together as most of Yuhua's runway package was this season. Stray alert. Hi, hello everyone, my name is Jer, and girl, I live. For this season finale, our Slaysian finalists must bow-end their entire run with not only a talent show, but also must participate in a 3-category mini ball. A finale ball, if you will. The 3 categories are Defying Gravity, where they will be suspended from the air, Yellow, 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 which is meant to signify joy and representation pride, and the last category is Come in Your Best Drag. Pretty self-explanatory. Self-explanatory! That's become a problem for me. I don't see myself stopping anytime soon. The episode begins on the runway with a truncated Bring Back My Girls. Normally I like these when it leads into a reunion, but that's not what happened. So I was like, ew, Michelle. I always love seeing the eliminated queens, but I was confused why we saw them only for a minute and then they disappear for the entirety of the episode. And this is just part 1 of some strange editing choices that were made and strange production choices, to be honest. We didn't even get to see these eliminated queens cheering for their friends at the talent show. They aren't present for the crowning or anything. Like, they were there for the equivalent of maybe like 2 production hours, maybe 3, there to get in drag, put on their makeup, put on their looks, walk the runway, and then go home? I'd be kind of grumpy if I was one of those queens. I'd be like, do I need to be there? I would have loved to have seen them in a few other places in the episode, and I think there were plenty of spots they could have appeared in. At the very least, just so we can keep glancing at their looks. There's only one look I really want to highlight, and that belongs to Ivory Glaze, looking like one of those super fancy teacups. She was so stunning and glowing in that look. I wish the hair was a bit bigger, but that's neither here nor there. It was such a short appearance. But she was my favorite look of the night. There were a few other cute looks, but the abbreviatedness of this really did not allow me to appreciate the intricacies of each one of these looks. Hell, they could have put this Bring Back My Girls between the top 2 announcement and the top 2 lip sync. Because there's an awkward moment where it says, okay, you can go back to the workroom, immediate jump cut to them coming back out for the lip sync. Normally there's something there. Category is confusing edits. The severe cut to the CoverGirl walk gave me a little bit of whiplash, but I super appreciated the tribute to Jiggly, and I love that this season was dedicated to her legacy, to her love and light that she provided to this world, and all of the kindness that she showed to so many of the queens, not only on this show, but also internationally. So for this final episode review, I am going to talk about each one of the queens in their entire package. Arizona Brandy is first up. I really liked the fit of her Defying Gravity look. The shape of that bust line was to die for, and that hair choice was sinfully luxe. I love that the back had a message, but ultimately I don't think this flowed very well during the aerials. The bottom of the cape I think was a little too heavy and weighed it all down. I was expecting a lot of movement and flow. So this scored 3rd for me in this category. And in a very Miss Fame way, it'll make sense later. For Yellow, 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 I think I like the headpiece. I think. The sun shape was interesting, albeit a little discordant with the overall look. It was gratuitous. Gratuitous! Because overall this was a fairly simple gown. I get that this was meant to be symbolic of the sun, but when that back piece came up and flared out, it looked a little more like a daffodil or a sunflower to me than the sun. It was definitely reading floral. I do like the fit on the hips quite a bit, but the simplicity of this look was maybe a little too mellow yellow. She scored number 4 in this category for me. And for Best Drag, Arizona is doing a play on her promo look. I like the cascade effect of the pleating on this skirt. Paired with this jungle green bodice, I do think the look was going somewhere. I just think it got a little lost on the route. The hair was a bit supermodel of the world, and I loved that. And I liked a lot of elements. I just think it lacked a little bit of that polished refinement that's needed for a finale. And it seems like the judges were not blown away by her looks any more than I was. Arizona is a performer at heart, and I think she can present just about anything, even when it's not the most high fashion or precise look. So she scored number 4 for me in this category. Finally, for talent, Arizona was doing kind of the most. There was drink balancing, drinking, a folding chair with stunts. It was very kitchen sink to me. The whole concept was campy. I enjoy camp. I especially enjoy a queen who sticks to their brand solidly like Arizona does. And I think her brand is funny. I will say she lost me quite a bit when she riffed off Baby Shark. Like, that was a chop for me. This is not iPad Kids Are Us. I don't want to see that. She scored number 3 in the talent show for me. Brigading is second. For Defying Gravity, I quite enjoyed the pleated cape of this. It was all very sheer-coated, even down to that long straight hair. And I liked the flow of it during the aerials. It was just short enough that the air could catch it and allow it to flow. The cascading layered effect in the back was a strong stylistic choice. And it scored number 1 in this category for me. For yellow, Brigading was giving us body. The shape on this was immaculate. I love the texture on this gown that you can see from quite literally every angle. It was a powerful look and didn't just rest on being pretty. And the ribbon effect of this asymmetrical shoulder was exciting. And I loved the hair choice on this garment. She scored number 2 in this category for me. And for Best Drag, Brigading is presenting us the Cosmos. I like the celestial bodiness of this look. It's all in the branding. Ding ding. That's the last time I'm gonna get to do this ever, I think. Unless she shows up in a Global All Winners, I will never get to say brand ding ding. Being a star is her essence, so this made a lot of sense for her. I liked the shape of that collar lined with that goldenrod yellow. It made those blues pop. And the stonework was immaculate. It was all just very right. I do wish the bodysuit underneath was maybe a little bit funkier, had some purples on it, rather than that big planet that was right in the center of it. In any case, she scored number 1 for me in this category. Finally, for talent, Brigading served us a well-choreographed dance number. It was all very par for the course as far as talent shows go. I could definitely listen to this song again in the future, so well done on that end. And when the boys threw her in the air and she flipped, oh! That was so cool. She scored number 2 in the talent show for me. Suki is 3rd. For Defying Gravity, I hate to say it, but I think it was all too much. And that's been a common critique of Suki that I've had all season. Suki steps on that line of fashion right where there's just too many details. And then she sticks her pinky toe right on that nasty old line and cha-cha slides across it. I do really like how the garment flowed as it walked. And that hood was super chic. Pairing green and gold was a bit of an eye orgasm, and I loved that. But there's a crinkled effect of gold on her puss. There's a leg wrap. There's gladiator heels. Gladiator! Chiffon flowing from the bra. A kinky Lazelle underwear bondage gear. It looks like a default cosmetic when you take off one of your companion's clothes in Baldur's Gate. It was just a lot, and maybe too much for my tastes. But it did flow nicely in the aerials. I will give it that. She scored number 4 in this category for me. For yellow, Suki easily had the best garment of the entire night, hands down. This was showgirl, this was opulent, this was way too much in the best way. It's like right at that line of too much but doesn't cross over it. This very much, to me, looks like it either belonged to Isis Couture or was inspired by her. That black Dita Von Teese hair on Suki was a wet dream I didn't know I needed. She needs to do this hair all the time because, my god. The shape of the dress, how it hugged on the waist, accentuated those hips, and then flowed into those feathers was perfection. And I loved the sculpt of that breast line and those silver pops of color in the metalwork. It was so good. She hands down scored number 1 in this category, and again, had the best look of the entire night. And for best drag, she was inspired by Harajuku. It was all very Gudo kawaii, which I enjoy, but I don't know if I enjoyed this. I think maybe there were too many concepts going on. This neon bubblegum pink and this snot neon green were a bit of an eyesore. I don't mean to be hateful, but it was kind of sickly and not in a way. And I think since there was so much happening, those hips did not need to be exaggerated. I think this easily could have been a cute Lolita skirt. Maybe with that drippy effect as the trim rather than lace. And I think the hair needed a bow to punch it up to the next level. And in my opinion, I don't think this needed to be a gown. Or, because this is a finale and it's not super appropriate to wear a short skirt as your finale dress, or I guess maybe you shouldn't without a train behind it, this could have been kimono style. Obi and everything, but still in that nasty ass green and pink, I suppose. And as much as I've roasted it, I do think it had more of a direct point of view than Arizona's did for Best Drag, and so it scored number 3 for me. Finally, for talent show, I fear Suki did not make the best use of her time. It easily felt the shortest of the 4 of them, and I think that goes to the fact that not a lot happened. I liked what this wanted to be. It was an homage to her mother and her culture that she's very disconnected from, and I love how special this was. I don't want to take away from that at all. It was just really wobbly. Suki isn't a performer, she's a designer, and I think that showed often throughout this season. I think for her talent, she could have done a minute dress. I know it's a little overplayed, but I saw her install those zippers in Canada 5. I know what she can do with a little bit of time. She easily could have banged out some couture in like 45 seconds and then runway modeled it, and I think that would have been super impressive. Now, I don't think that would have made her overall package like a number 2, because I think the number 1 went to Brigading and I think Vinas cleared, but I think it would have at least helped a little bit, and I think would have been definitely more in line of what she's capable of. I understand that she wanted to pay homage to her culture and wanted to show something that she's never done before. It could have stood to be practiced just a little more. In any case, I appreciate that she embraced her culture and the beauty that this was. It just wasn't very fine-tuned to launch her into top 2 in my opinion, so she scored number 4 in the talent show for me. Vinas is last, looking stunner in pearl white. I loved the cross straps of this neckline. The stoning is piping with such an interesting visual concept. I think it had the best movement in the aerials, but looked the heaviest on the runway somehow. Like, I have no idea how it flows so well when it's suspended, but when it's walking, the air just doesn't catch it. It scored number 2 in this category for me. For yellow, Vinas is playing with illusion again. This is her specialty in strong suit, and I love to see it. This outfit was very My Fair Lady meets Invisible Woman. I think in its effort to create the illusion, it sacrificed a bit on scale, because in my opinion, it was all a little bulky. I love the idea of this. I think it just needs a little refinement to be really effective with where it's going. She scored number 3 in this category for me. And for Best Drag, Vinas is serving us cockroach realness. Girl, what the hell? I love how gross this was, but also was so chic. The little antenna hair was such a fun aesthetic choice. I think she played with scale really well, and this is how you do a cockroach dress on Drag Race. Vinas scored number 2 in Best Drag for me. Finally, for talent, Vinas is serving us live singing. This was the most talent of the talent show. Those live vocals were breathtaking. Like, holy smokes. I love how she blended fierceness with comedy, and the styling of the look for this performance was everything. I want to live in those boots. But much like Arizona's performance, I think Vinas was a little too kitchen sinky. The bottle breaking and the banana eating, I don't think were necessary. It was sort of like, oh, and this too. Teehee, I'm so quirky. There's nothing wrong with Teehee so quirky performances, but it didn't add to anything. It also didn't subtract either, but it was just zero sum at the end of it. She scored number 1 in talent for me. So after doing some math of all my scoring, I promise this would all make sense. I'm following golf rules. The lowest numbers are the top 2. So for me, Brigading scored as number 1 in placement for entire package of the finale, with Vinas in 2nd, Suki in 3rd, and Arizona in 4th. Suki is cut first, but earlier that night, she did win Miss Congeniality. I thought maybe it was gonna go to Bernie or her, depending on how things shook out, but I hate that she had to be crowned in that ugly Harajuku outfit. I'm so sorry. And I also hate that not one single eliminated queen was there for this. I would have loved if they were all there to cheer them on. Even off onto the side, like on little benches or something. Where were the eliminated queens? Even shots of them partying in the workroom, watching on a live monitor or something would have been sufficient for the edit. But no, they're all gone. We don't even see Arizona and Suki present for the last lip sync. That was also weird for me. Arizona is cut 2nd and leaves saying, just remember, I didn't lose. I just didn't win. That took me out. It was so funny. Arizona is so funny. I will remember a lot of what she did after this season is over. Her character in the Snatch Game, her performance at the DragCon booths. She really did a great job, and I hope she feels proud of herself leaving this season. She didn't lose. She just didn't win. Brigading and Vinas then have to lip sync to Marina Summers' Born to Do Drag. I love that they chose a Queen song that was not RuPaul. Thank the stars. They both relied on their own unique strengths, which I definitely appreciated. Brigading leaned in on being fierce and perfection, with Vinas utilizing comedy more. I do wish that Vinas would have scrapped some of these biological straight units from her repertoire, especially while lip syncing. Because every time she lip synced in them, the hair was in her face like this was The Ring, and distracted from the overall performance, which I think was good. And I've gotta wonder if Marina was flashbacking to Anaconda the moment that Brigading pulled out that karaoke mic. And while that prop made sense to me, Vinas mimicking slicing her wrists and then reaching behind into her corset to pop a blood pack and then wipe that all over her body, was a bit poor taste. I don't know about all that. I might be reading into this way too much, and it's okay if I am. Self-harm runs really rampant in the queer community, and so that movement just wasn't necessary in my opinion. Plus it being followed by blood. Like, I get why it was done in context of the song. Like, I get it. But it just wasn't the vibe for me. I also called it weeks ago after the Siam incident that I was pretty sure she wasn't gonna win because she started to get the villain edit. And whereas Suki and Arizona were getting the underdog edit, Brigading was getting the front runner edit, Vinas was giving, that girl's not gonna win. Even if that did not come into play at all in this finale, it was something I called weeks ago and a lot of people roasted me alive for saying it, doubling down that people like Cat won. And so Vinas was going to win because she was getting the villain edit. Can't wait to hear all the apologies that I will never get. And I know a couple of y'all are gonna be nasty about Brigading's win in the comments because I've been seeing what you guys say. Just know that if y'all are too nasty in the comments, I'm going to delete them. You could be disappointed that your bias lost without being nasty. And I've dealt with this every single season of Drag Race. There are always nasty comments about the winner. And again, we could be disappointed all day that our favorite didn't win without being malicious. I loved how this season ended, and not just because Brigading was my bias. It was a fun time from start to finish, despite my many criticisms. But I criticized because I don't think it's healthy to just say, I loved it. I don't think that's a good way of living your life. It's okay to like something and be critical of it at the same time, or call out parts that you don't like. It's healthy even. I loved seeing talent that I didn't know of before this season. I loved so many of the looks that were presented, and what I loved the most about Slaysian Royale, more than any other international all-stars where they bring contestants from around the world into one roof, is how they figured out for this season to focus on performance-based challenges and make those the forefront rather than hyper-focusing on these acting improv challenges that really only benefit people who speak English as their first language. And I think a lot of those acting and improv challenges are at a massive disadvantage to the ESL queens. And in this case, the queens who didn't speak Tagalog were not at a disadvantage in any of the challenges. They got to perform just as they wanted to, because these challenges were open interpretation and they were more focused on either look or performance. Things they could all be equally good at. Even challenges like the Snatch Game, they found a creative way to tailor it so that each one of the queens could thrive in their own way. Unless they really didn't know what they were doing like Siam. I think some of my biggest criticism was that I was left a little confused about the runway prompts at times. There were several episodes where they would say the category is this and then the queens would come out in something that I was not expecting at all. And I was left confusion. I think if they do a season like this again, I would love a little more explanation on what the brief was. And I think one of the biggest problems was that they cast so many early outs and then pitted them against some hard-hitting Pinoy talent, which did make the season feel a little bit imbalanced at times. But as a whole, I enjoyed this season immensely. I wish that the finale was edited maybe a bit stronger, a little bit more finessed and smooth, because watching Brigading get crowned on an empty stage was jarring to say the least. Even just bringing out the other finalists I think would have been sufficient to let her be cheered on while she was crowned. Though I would have loved all of the eliminated queens to be there too. Where were the eliminated queens? But I digress. I was going to make a rejudging of the season, but instead I think I'll leave it at this. I'm going to start working on a overview, a retrospect, if you will, of this season, highlighting some of the highs and lows, some of the talent and the progression of the contestants, and really just dig into what I think made this so special. I really hope that they do another Slaysian Royale, and I hope that this inspires maybe a Latino Royale or a Hispanic Royale, even an all French speaking cast, because there are queens, I think specifically in Belgique, who would maybe feel a little more comfortable in a cast where everyone was speaking French rather than try to make it somewhere where English is the primary language spoken. I will be crafting a wish list of international queens that we'd like to see for a second season, so keep your eyes peeled for a couple of those videos that will be coming out as we wrap up this season. In the meanwhile, I am covering Drag Race España Season 5 as well as Titans 2. Thank you so much for watching this season and tuning in each week to come and hear my thoughts and sharing yours. I've very much enjoyed reading everyone's opinions on the episodes. And the comment section has been much tamer this season than it was for All Stars 10, because some people got crazy. Thank you so much for watching this final review, and I will see y'all on the flip.